What's up, everybody? Welcome to part one of a two-part series. In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to convert a generic list to a data table using .NET Core. And so what we've got is an ASP.NET Core Web API project open here in Visual Studio 2022. And so the first question is, why would we want to do this? So let me go over to SQL Server Management Studio. So in here I have our demo database, which if you've seen some of my previous videos, you may be familiar with. So I've created a very simple table called name, which is, let's go ahead and take a look at that. So it simply has an ID that is our primary key, and it's also auto-generated, and just a first and last name. So nothing too fancy here. So what if we had in C#, we had a list of names, like maybe you had a JSON file that you processed or something and converted to a list of names, and you wanted to just insert them into this table all at once. So in order to do something like that, you would need to convert it to a data table on the C# side, and also we need to create a stored procedure in SQL Server and use something called a user-defined table type. So the SQL side of this, as well as inserting the actual records, will be in part 2 of this series. So let's go back over to Visual Studio, and we'll get started on implementing this. One thing I would want to point out here is, if you want to find this code, you can find it. I have an Angular demo site, and I'm going to put the link in the description, but I'll just pull it up right here. This site has a lot of my coding challenges that you'll see in other videos. It's got some common interview questions, and things like that. And here's our coding challenge for today. So if you wanted to follow along, you could just go to this URL and simply copy and paste. And for time's sake, I'm going to go and do exactly that for this method right here. This is going to be the first method that we create. So let's go back to Visual Studio. However you do this, if you want to create like a helpers folder, or whatever, we're not going to get too fancy with this. I guess I'll just create a folder called helpers, and now I need to create a class. And I guess since we're dealing with a data table, I'm going to call it data helper. Okay, so now I'm just going to paste that method in here, and we'll go through it. Okay, so I do need to bring in a couple of namespaces here. This is system component model, system.data, and so we're good to go. Okay, so let's go through this. Okay, so if we go through our method, we have this property descriptor collection, which is just going to be a collection of the properties that get constructed. We have type descriptor, which is essentially just getting the metadata from our type. And we'll have a data table object. And as we go through our properties, this properties list is essentially, we're going to have a table. We're going to test this with a name table, which has an ID, a first name, and a last name column in it. So those will be our properties that we're going to set up, and we're going to do that next. So it's just going to add those to our properties collection here, and then we're going to loop through our properties. So for each property descriptor, and all this is going to do is add those columns to our data table. So now our data table, when it's done with this for each, is going to have 3 columns. So it's going to have ID, first and last name. And then we go to the next step, which is where we're going to go through our list and get the values for each row in each column. And that's all that this does. So and we go dt.rows.add data row, and then we're going to return our data table. Okay, so let's see. The next thing we're going to need to do is test this out. So let's go ahead and create a models folder. So right click, add new folder, and we'll name it model. Ooh, I don't like that. Models. And let's right click that, add class, and we'll just call it name. And we're going to have three properties for ID, and first name, and one for last name. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to need is to create an API controller for our names. So I'm going to right click on the controllers folder here, click on add controller, and we're going to select API, API controller empty, and then click add. And we're just going to go ahead and name that our names controller and click add. Okay. Now let's go ahead and add a get method here. So I'm going to add a HTTP get. There we go. So, and we're going to say public enumerable name names. And now we're going to need a list of names. To save time, I've already got a list right here. So, and we're just going to return, names. Okay. So now we need to test our data table method. So for that, we're going to say, I'm going to create a data table object. You can say actually data table. Visual Studio is slowing down quite a bit here for some reason. Okay, so now what I need to do is call that method. So we are in data helper, so I'm going to need to bring in that namespace. So data helper. Computer is slowing down quite a bit here. Dot. Okay, let me do a control dot. Bring in our helper's namespace, and then convert to data table. And we're just going to pass in our names object. Wow, this is incredibly slow, and it really messes with your typing. So let's go ahead and fire this up. We're going to have a Swagger UI page, and we're just going to hit this breakpoint just to verify that we have a data table. So here we go. I'm just going to, you can hit F5 or click start. Okay, we have our Swagger page open now. So I'm going to click get, try it out, and execute. And we're going to go back to our API. And let's just hit F10 to go through that and then hover over the DT. And let's just take a look. So what have we got? We've got columns. We have 3 columns. ID, first name, and last name. And we should also have, let me just bring that up again. We also have 3 rows. So we go to our item array, and there we have it. The ID is not going to be populated. We didn't actually even need that for this. In the next video, I'm going to show you how to pass this data table to a stored procedure in SQL Server. Until then, take care.